reflection on science as a good for society. It required advanced scientific thinking. It required industrial infrastructure, which again was the expression of advanced societies. In other words, chemical weapons were being presented as something of the future. Chemical warfare was something superior.
At a military level, this thinking was echoed in the UK and in the USA. But among the public, there was enormous opposition to the fact that these weapons had been used. Professor Alistair Hay.
It was casualties somewhere between 1.25 and 1.5 million. The legacy of chemical weapons was considerable. Remember, of course, that there were immediate effects on the battlefield, but there were many individuals who had chronic respiratory problems, skin and eye problems after the First World War, the legacy of their exposure to these chemical weapons during the war. And this meant that many countries were determined that these things should not be used.
Many came home with dreadful injuries. As a child in the 1960s, I remember an elderly neighbor, a First World War veteran who had survived an attack. His wheezing and the story of poison gas were the stuff of nightmares. These lingering, debilitating effects focused public opposition to chemical weapons. But at the Washington Disarmament Conference in 1921, states grappled with a perennial chemical conundrum.
The diplomats at that meeting bumped into the obstacle of what today we call dual-use technology. In other words, the toxic chemicals that had been used on the battlefield, most of them had been synthesized for the first time over 100 years earlier. So we're dealing with technologies that all of a sudden found new use during the First World War. So people at the disarmament conference said, how can they control toxic substances that were key to industrial production and development?
And so the conference made one of those classic diplomatic compromises. Chemical weapons were to be banned, but only in warfare.
It was this combined legacy which led countries to sit down and hammer out a treaty called the Geneva Protocol, and this was agreed in 1925. And this protocol outlawed the use of both biological and chemical weapons, but significantly it prohibited first use.
So that's kind of the crucial part that you mustn't start, but could one respond?
Indeed, one could, and this was why many countries continued to have stocks of chemical weapons. Their argument was, of course, we'll never start using these things, but by Jove, if somebody uses them against us, we want to be in a position to respond, and to respond in kind. And so the countries built up stocks.
In the conference room, the nations still expressed their faith in peace. Outside, they kept their powder dry.
And so already in the interwar period, one has this sense of the deterrence going on in the chemical weapons arena.
Yes, and it continued right through and up to and through the Second World War.
Inventors and scientists, think, work and experiment. Give us new proposals and discoveries, and you will have done a great thing for Germany.
A chilling exhortation to scientists to do their bit for the fatherland.
And Bill on the hill, sounding good, and Bud, ZYY, and Chris, Tony, Donna, and everybody else. Well, I've been home most of the day today. Went out and did a couple of little drive-in window pickups. That's been about it. But other than that, glad to hear the report on Lynn, so that's good. Continued prayers for Lynn. Well, I better put a slash there, Festus, so everybody will know who he is. Anyway, so certainly hope that his progress continues to be good. Anyway, Jimmy, you talked where somebody mentioned, I think Lynn mentioned about your trip. Well, the fishing might have been a bust, but I'll just bet you a dime to a donut that the fellowship was well worth it anyway. Thank you a lot for calling, Annette. Really appreciate it. And everybody be safe. This is KF4YP.
All right.
right, Verge, KM4YP, W9UQI. Booming in here at 30 over on 100 watts, I guess. I still see you got a hidden 5,000 watt amp laying around somewhere. The ghost amp. But, yeah, the fellowship was great. Always a good time with the four other guys I go down with. And we've been doing... they've been doing it a couple more years than I've been going with them, but we've already got the house at Okeechobee already booked for next year, and so it will be a lot more productive at Okeechobee than trying to saltwater fish in February. So, George, you have a good night. Always a pleasure talking to you and hearing you in there. All right, we'll move on down to Chris, KN4AKJ. Chris, it's your show.
Good evening, Jim, and everyone on the net. This is KN4AKJ, Chris here in Paris, Kentucky, or Bourbon County, however you want to look at it. We are looking at 51 degrees. It got up to about 62, beautiful. I went to a neighbor's house. We sat out on the sunny side of his shop and just sat there in the sun, and I got a little more tan on my face. I've got 2 good days of tan. I got one more day tomorrow. They're saying it's going to be 60. I'm going to do the same thing to get that, redneck face going on. Everybody sounds great tonight. We were talking about how much food was costing. When the pandemic hit, so to speak, it shut down a lot of mom and pop businesses that we used to go and eat, and we just don't eat out, and I know everything's ungodly high, you can't get a hamburger for nothing, but we just started eating at home. As far as pizza, we buy DiGiorno's or a Sam's, and we add mushrooms and onions and whatever. We get a 3-meat or whatever, and I tell you what, it's some of the best pizza I've ever eaten. It's hard to believe that, and I've eaten some pretty good pizza. But things have gone crazy, and we just like to keep it low. Everybody sounds great. Appreciate you picking me up. With that, I'll throw it back to net control. This is KN4AKJ. Until things change, I'm the voice of Paris, Kentucky.
All right, Chris, very good. KN4AKJ, W9UQI. Good, strong signal here tonight, Chris. Sounding good. And, yeah, I like a cheap pizza, too. Luckily, I got a place called Mimo's. The guy's from Long Island and been living in New Albany for the last 40 years, and he's got a little Italian restaurant. And I can get an extra large cheese and sausage New York style pizza for $20 every day. So, and I'm talking, it's like an 18-inch pizza, so it's well worth the money. So anyway, you have a good night, and we will talk at you later. All right, we got a treat. KE8REX. Rex, good to hear you in here for a comment. It's your show.
Okay, I'm a treat. Well, that's a new one on me. Well, if you say so, Jimmy. Just great to be back on the radio. I've had a spout with salmonella, and I've been off the radio for a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. I don't know. But I'm back to power now, so sorry about all of it. I'll be on the radio quite a bit more now. And with that being said, it got up to 60 degrees here in Middletown, Ohio. It's actually 51 degrees right now, but it was a beautiful, beautiful day. Jimmy, I'm glad to hear you're back, buddy. I'm sorry about your fishing trip, but I think you've bedded up and partying. I really think you do. And, Burge, man, if you had a power amplifier, we wouldn't be able to be on here. You blow all the radios up. So there you go. All right, Jimmy, back to you, buddy. Good to hear you back. Good to hear you back. Yes, thank you.
All right, Rex, K8REX, W9UQI. Good to hear you in there, Rex, so I'm glad you're feeling better. Didn't know you had a bout with salmonella. That can really be hard on people. But I'm glad you're back almost. Hopefully you're back to 100%. And it was a treat hearing you in here for a comment. Usually you just come here in the evening at short time. So 73 and you have a good night. All right, we're going to move down to N4VER. Mark, it's your show.
Yeah, good evening there, Jimmy, and all the people on the Kentucky phone net there. It's really, I think 58 degrees, depending on which thing that you look at, but, none of them agree, but, you kind of add them all together and kind of average it out there, under the law of averages. But anyway, I was glad to hear the report on Festus, and he's a member of the 3916. He chipped in on the freewheelers and the Alpha Ugly, which a lot of the people are between the two nets. A lot of the same people checked in on both, so I'll be sure to relay all that information because I'm a member there too. But yeah, I appreciate that knowledge, and I will make sure that it gets passed on. Jimmy, you all making me hungry talk about that pizza and stuff. I just a while ago, but you're making me hungry again. But trying to see the trip didn't turn out. But you know what? You got an excuse now that you might, get revenge and go on another one, maybe, hint. But anyway, Jimmy, that's all I got there, and I want to wish everyone a very fine evening. At least we got warm temperatures to deal with instead of below zero, like we had some time ago. But I will say 7-3 all around. This is N4VER. Back to you, Jim. Roller.
Question. Go ahead. Hey, Mark, the Alpha Ugly, are they still operating on 3855, or did they move?
No, they've always been on 3.855, and of course, like I said, a lot of the people there are also members of the freewheelers, the 3916 net, so that pretty much covers a lot of territory there, Rick.
Yeah, I used to join in on the Alpha Ugly quite a bit, practically every evening. So just wondering if they were still on the same frequency. I ain't been there for a while. All right, back to you, Jimmy. Thanks, Mark.
Oh, one more thing there, Rick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did get you approved, so you're a member now on the Facebook page. So that's all taken care of. N4VER. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, Mark. Appreciate it. I used to be a member, but probably ain't no more. All right, back to you, Jimmy.
All right, guys. Mark, N4VER, you have a good night, and sounding beautiful in here tonight. Nice, strong, good audio signal coming in. And you take care of yourself, and we'll talk at you down the road. All right, we're going to move down to KY4SP. Tony, it's your show.
W9UQI and Annette, KY4SP. Well, FTDX 3000 and the QRO HF2000 amplifier this evening into my about 15-foot high antenna. Signals are real good, hearing everyone quite well. I didn't have a real eventful day at work today. Went to my usual post, and they have a little issue with one of the radio consoles that I'll have to go get parts for and repair in the morning, but that shouldn't be too bad. It's not anything that impedes the operation, so we'll deal with it in the morning. And I'm going to go up and spoil the grandkids when I get done here, and then see what's for supper, and maybe come back down here and see what's going on 3816 in a couple of hours. So I'm doing quite well, and I hope everyone else is. Back to you from KY4SP.
All right, KY4SP, W9UQI. Tony, 3000, the QRO amp is just putting out. You're 40 over up here in Corden, and